Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone, to the regular board meeting of October 30th. I'd like to start by acknowledging that the CVRD is on the unceded territories of the Cowichan, Malahat, Subasit, Halalt, Penelakut, Stamina, Sliaxin, Pauquichin, Dididot, and Pachidot nations, who have been here for thousands of years. And with that, Mr. Robbins, we have approval of the agenda, but we have a number of changes.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Board, and those watching at home and online. Yes, there were a number of items referred from the Committee of the Whole. Unfortunately, the committee couldn't get through it, and so we have 3 items being referred, and we'll place those under new business. We'll call NB1, Report from the Facilities and Transit Division with regards to boardroom renovation project. Some conceptual drawings. NB2 will call the report from the Deputy Administrative Officer with regards to the CVRD strategic plan. And then NB3, report from the Deputy CAO with regards to the CVRD capital plan, a Q3 2024 status report. And as we get through the agenda, there was just one noted, and we'll a resolution that we need to tweak under SR5, but I'll bring that forward when that item comes up. There was just an incorrect reference to the program and for what the money is being used for. It is in the report, though. It's just the resolution wasn't captured correctly.
All right, so looking for a mover and a seconder. Approval of the agenda, moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Robbins.
Motion that the minutes of the regular board meeting of October 9, 2024 be adopted.
Moved. Do I have a seconder? Seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? No, okay. Motion carries. Director Staples.
I'd just like to recuse myself before the next item is brought forward, as I work for the same organization that's presenting.
Thank you.
Do you want to stick around for public input period first?
Sure.
Which chair brings us to the public input period.
I'm not sure we have anyone from the public in the gallery. I think it's all staff.
Then we'll wait for Director Staples to leave, and then we can move on to item 5, or agenda item 5.
It's okay.
And the board has a delegation from the Social Planning Cowichan with regards to the outcomes of transportation plan for the Ladysmith and surrounding communities, which included areas G and H. And we'll just have our presenter or presenters just introduce themselves to you all.
Welcome, Ms. Sorry. You can hit the button on the microphone. I think I saw something about a presentation.
Thank you. Yes.
Do you know what you're doing? Do you need support?
I believe I saw.
You look like an expert.
Oh. Look at that.
So now,
Staff taking care of me.
Just let Chase share it through the WebEx. We've been through this already today. There it is. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Rosalie Sari. I'm with Social Planning Cowichan. Thank you so much, Chair and Board, for having me today. And thank you to staff for their support in getting me here today as well. So I'm here to present some outcomes from a project we did in the Ladysmith and surrounding area regarding transportation. So let's get to it. Oh, no. There we go. I've included some background information here. I won't go through the stats because otherwise my presentation will be 13 and a half minutes instead of 10. So basically what to take as background context is we do have an aging population happening in Ladysmith, a little bit higher than the normal median age in the CVRD. Population is growing and serves quite a few folks outside of the town of Ladysmith as well. There's some low-income stats here, which will be relevant in a moment. And we took a look at the commuter stats also and realized that 36% of those commuting are actually commuting outside of the CVRD, such as in Nanaimo, with 32% within the CVRD, but outside of Ladysmith. And the reason why we did this project was we've been working with the town of Ladysmith on their poverty reduction strategy since 2020, and they approved the strategy in 2021. And so there were 10 themes that came out of that, and transportation really touches on all 10 themes. So if you can't access your medical appointments, or can't get to a good paying job, or can't get to school, transportation really does influence all of that. So as a task group, we really wanted to tackle this particular action out of that strategy, which is to establish some kind of focus group where we can take a look at what options are out there and really understand more of what the needs and gaps are. So that's really what this project was aiming to address. As we know, individual transportation costs are costly for those who can't afford it, who are either low income. Even buying a used vehicle that's 5 years old is at the $20,000 mark right now. So transit also is expensive, and especially as we look at it as a broad regional service, there's lots of ground to cover. So there's lots of limitations for municipalities. Specific to Ladysmith, there's lack of service north of downtown. New shuttle with Stamanis, which I'll get to in a minute, but connecting them is a challenge, connecting those riders. And as well, Transfer Beach, Ladysmith Marine area, Davis Road South, and other newly developed and new developed areas. There's a gap in service there. We heard from folks in areas H, North Oyster and Diamond, as well as Saltaire, who do not contribute into the tax service or their tax service into transportation, but they do use Ladysmith quite often for services, for accessing services. And then just the hills are part of the challenge with getting around if you're walking or cycling, especially if you're carrying groceries. And it's a bigger challenge for those, of course, with diverse abilities or who are aging. So as I said, our project purpose was to identify the gaps and the needs and identify possible solutions within the community. We put together a transportation action committee to guide the process of engaging the public on this, and we received funding from Island Coastal Economic Trust Community Passenger Transportation Fund in February. So here's who we had on our Transportation Action Committee. I wanted to thank Director McClinton for being on there, as well as Director Martman. And then we had Acting Mayor Mackay from Ladysmith, as well as the wonderful Rochelle behind me here, who is on staff from CVRD Transit Department, and also connected us to BC Transit throughout the project. So very exciting news. Stamanis, after many, many years, probably decades of wanting a shuttle service, was able to implement that starting in July. So what they're able to do is cover Chemainus Reserve Area 13 and connect them to Oyster Bay. And however, there is a $750 cost for them to get into Ladysmith once they get to Oyster Bay, where the microtel is. They connect in with using the number 70 Nanaimo-Cowichan Express. The nation does offset half the cost of a round trip, so they pay $750 for a round trip instead of each trip. But it is a cost, knowing that it's $225 for the Cowichan Valley route, for the Cowichan Valley system. So that is something that is being looked at, is the cost of that route, because the regional district of Nanaimo runs it instead of Cowichan. But here's our project timeline. We got awarded the grant in February. We did 2 rounds of engagement in April and May, and then in June into August, and then we finalized at the end of September, early October. And our target audience were those folks who lived in Ladysmith or around Ladysmith or accessed Ladysmith for their main services and to access goods, shopping, that kind of thing. So there's lots of key takeaways that we got from the project. But basically, if you don't have a vehicle, if you can't drive because of physical conditions, or you choose not to, or you can't afford it, people were telling us that they felt very disconnected from community. It limits their independence. It limits how and when they can go out and do certain things. If they would just want to hang out downtown, they're really reliant on a ride from someone else or a schedule with the bus. This especially impacts youth, seniors, and those with diverse abilities. And while many don't use public transit, there was lots of interest in wanting to use it. There just needs to be more frequent service and broader coverage in more neighborhoods. So really looking at expanding service into the evenings, as well as Sunday and holidays. People were also interested in taxi service or a ride share, and we do have U-Ride, which currently is a service happening in Nanaimo. So I spoke with them about moving it to Ladysmith, which I'll get to. And then we asked people if when they don't have access to their vehicle, how they get around, and 66% said they do enjoy walking. 35 would cycle. However, the hilly terrain, again, is a challenge. Our participation numbers in both rounds of survey was 268 for the first round and 223 for the second round. So out of the first round, here are the four top options that came up for people. A shuttle service, preferably with a hop-on, hop-off model, so it gives that flexibility that includes better coverage and more connectivity. The second one was improving active transportation and safety measures. The third was local taxi service, and the fourth was recruiting a rideshare. So when we went to do round 2 of engagement, we had these 4 options in mind, and we asked more questions just to understand what would make these options most feasible for folks to actually want to use those services. So getting into the neighborhood shuttle, this was the most favored option. People spoke a lot about having more accessible stops available to them. Gertie is one example that uses a flag down kind of system instead of having fixed stops on Gabriel Island. We went and did a tour over there. Most people just wanted more routes, covering more neighborhoods, lots of talk about needing connectivity from downtown to Coronation Mall and to other connections, and then again, improving the frequency of the schedule. Lots of benefits for public transportation. The biggest one is obviously improving accessibility and independence for folks. Lots of talk about people aging in place, that once they can no longer drive, they just foresee themselves moving out of their community into a more urban area where they can access public transportation. We highlighted a series of zones to ask people where they wanted their priorities for more service. Zone 1 in the middle there, really that's where most of the hills are, so people really talked about that area quite a bit. It's 38%. Saltaire, we had some great response asking for a route that goes along Chemainus Road that connects Chemainus as well to Coronation Mall. And then service across the other side of the highway towards the water where Transfer Beach is and the marina. So when looking at the feasibility of a shuttle, obviously there would be lots of overlap with existing BC service or BC Transit routes. It would double the fare payments, connecting riders if they wanted to do the shuttle and then connect out to another route. And while there are funds from higher levels of government for capital expenses, if we wanted to purchase a shuttle or two, the funding for ongoing maintenance and operations is the difficult part. And with the town of Ladysmith already paying into their BC Transit, we would be looking at a nonprofit organization or society or service clubs or the business community, et cetera, to really pick up the operations of that. So we figure the best thing to do is to share this feedback with BC Transit and explore some potential modifications to existing routes. That would be the step 1. And then if there was not an opportunity to expand routes that already exist and a shuttle might be useful, we would recommend really looking at the Rocky Creek Transfer Beach Marina area across on the other side of the highway and connecting into downtown. Oyster Bay to Ladysmith so that we can connect folks on the Chemainus shuttle as well as additional workers and residents, which will be coming up with the development there. And then considering the Saltaire route. Moving on to active transportation in 53 seconds. Most are physically able, really do enjoy getting around, walking and having that as part of their mode of transportation. But we did hear lots of comments about needing more sidewalks, safer bike lanes, street lighting, charging stations, secure bike and mobility scooter parking. And then lots of talk about exploring e-bike share program and ownership programs. And also educating folks on how to share the road was a big one as well. So between drivers and pedestrians and cyclists, especially e-bikes as they go much faster. We also encourage people to participate in the Town of Ladysmith's mobility plan, which will be coming up. They'll be doing engagement around then so they can help prioritize what active transportation routes to focus on first. And then very similar, local taxi and with the ride share, we gave a disclaimer that information will be shared with those private enterprises, but this project really won't be seeking funding to support those. But there was a desire to have that kind of in the mix of transportation in emergency situations. If you're getting to the airport or if you need to or want to enjoy some drinks downtown and want to get home safely, a local taxi service and or ride share would be helpful. I think a lot of the difference between the two is that there is that accessibility through the app, and you can actually rate how your riding experience is with ride shares. But when speaking with URide in Nanaimo, they did say that they really do prefer to offer a 24/7 service, and with a population under 10,000 people, it's really challenging to do that, to incentive drivers when there's low ridership. So this is a trickier one because we only saw 20% of our participants said they would actually use one 24/7 on weekdays and 23% on weekends. So we asked, our final question was, what kind of services would you want to use now versus 10 years from now versus 5 to 10 years from now? And the shuttle ranked number 1 in each category. Cycling was number 2, but also ranked number 4 because of people who can't always cycle, and thinking as you age, you may not be in the same physical health that you are today. So our closing thoughts are, we're really disappointed there was no magic solution that came from the community during our rounds of engagement. Obviously, it's a very big challenge to consider funding a shuttle, or really even just expanding some of the existing BC Transit routes, but this really did get the conversation going in the community. Our our task group really was very motivated to keep this conversation going, and really it laid the groundwork for us to explore further options as well that came from community. And that's it.
Thank you very much. I'll look around the room for questions of clarity. We are not discussing or debating this topic right now. We do have a big agenda to go. So I think I saw you're second guessing yourself. I'll start with Director Wilson then.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Rosalie. That's good. I like this shuttle, this hop-on, hop-off service, because I've used it many times around the world, Philippines, Dutch Harbor in Alaska. It's got a set price. You get on anywhere, you get off anywhere. And it just does a set route. But from what I can hear, it's difficult to set that up with transit. Is it possible that we could go to private enterprise? Is that an option that has been looked at? Because there may be operators who may be interested in something like that. And would it require an app to let riders know, well, it's over there, it's not going to come for another 10 or 15 minutes?
Yeah, there are some smaller islands north of the province that do have it, and I'm gapping out on the name of the service now that does something similar. I think it's more of getting from community to community, not necessarily within one community, but Ladysmith did have a trolley, and they tried for a few years to get that going. They just didn't see the ridership that they would have liked, and so that's why they transferred their tax base into the BC Transit model. We heard some anecdotal kind of stories from folks that they thought it was more a tourist thing. It wasn't really it had wooden seats, it wasn't comfortable, that kind of thing. And then other people who just loved it. So yeah, it's not, I guess, the same kind of service as BC Transit, but they did start with the trolley, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to clarify my speaker list. I have McClinton, yeah? Martman and Istash. Well, you gave up your spot. Go ahead, Director McClinton.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Wonderful work. It was great working with you this past couple months. And you have another career as a cat herder lined up, keeping us all in line. That was great stuff. A couple questions of clarification. So just curious if you're allowed to share the percentage of people who participated from Saltaire, and were any of those people from Thetis?
Oh, nobody identified from Thetis. I don't remember the percentage, but it was quite high because once you shared it on your Facebook page, during the second round, we got quite, it was matching between the Zone 1 and the Saltaire route in terms of participation that way. But
That's great. A quick follow-up. In your estimates, your best guess, do you think for Saltaire specifically, really just a bus route through Saltaire would likely solve a lot of their concerns?
Yeah, I think down Chemainus Road would be a world of difference for sure. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
Okay,
especially for Lisa.
Director
Shoes on her
Martman.
Thank you, and I guess this is a plug for Rosalie Day, but thank you very much because you really did manage a lot of different dynamics, including area directors. And I think the question I come out of this is that when this first started, Stamanis started their shuttle. And was there any learnings since this report about what Stamanis is doing and whether that is a model that could be used going forward for the Ladysmith area?
Yeah, I think it's pretty soon, early to tell. I do hear that they've had quite the uptake and service of their shuttle. Yeah, when we were doing the poverty reduction strategy, it was really hard to hear some of the stories of people trying to get in town just to go to work. It's like an hour walk just to get to the highway. So it's great that they have their shuttle. It would be wonderful to see a connection from Oyster Bay to the town for sure. But yeah, as a nation, they're covering the entire cost of running the shuttle. So if someone wanted to cover the entire cost of running a shuttle, that'd be fabulous. But that's how they're doing it.
Follow up? Yep.
Yeah, and this is just a plug before Director Estache gets into this. That means that, a pathway from, Ladysmith through to Area H, like our active transportation pathway, might make it to the top of the master plan. Plug, unabashed. Thank you.
Director Estache, go ahead.
So you had insight without even knowing it, Chair, because it was actually perfect that I got put behind my fellow colleagues, Director Martman and McClinton, because they asked the perfect questions where I go, and I support both what they're saying. So Director McClinton touched on it real quick. We heard from the previous BC Transit Engagement Survey, speaking specifically to the Chemainus-Ladysmith corridor, and Director McClinton touched on it perfectly. So that was my questioning was going to be, is based on what we've heard time and time again from BC Transit Engagement Surveys on the need from Chemainus residents, especially now because it's the only close, reasonable place to connect to the NCX 70. In that questionnaire, was there a question around the support or willingness, knowing that there would be increased cost as a whole to fund these initiatives through the BC Transit levy at the CVRD table? Was there any questioning or anything on that, on saying, would you be open to it or supportive of it?
No, we did not ask if
Okay.
people would, yeah.
So that gets,
We asked what they
that's
would
our
pay
job
for
now.
fair rate, but yeah, definitely Solterra would have to buy into, with their tax base into
Okay.
the transit system.
Great, and thanks for a fantastic report and presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Sari. This is great to have you here and give this presentation, and I don't see any more questions. So thank you so much for coming and for being patient.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, let's give her.
The full report is on the website. Thank you.
So could somebody pop in to bring Ms. Director Staples back? Thank you. Okay, so we didn't really officially take a break, but I would like to take a moment to welcome Director Stevens to our table in person. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being patient through our technical issues this morning.
Does that mean we have a full table?
Yeah, we have a full table. Everyone's here in person. All right, Mr. Robbins, where are we going?
We're going to go to committee and commission reports. First one is a report from the Committee of the Whole of October 9th. There is a single recommendation. Director Wilson, I think you chaired that meeting?
I did. And I'm glad to see that our revered Director of Committee of the Whole is back again. Welcome back, Tim. The recommendation of the Committee of the Whole meeting of October 9th, 2024. Your Committee of the Whole reports and recommends on October the 9th, 2024 are two, that the newly revised asset management policy be approved with the addition of collaboration throughout the policy where appropriate.
And you moved that? Is there a seconder? Seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Robbins.
And CR2 is the recommendations report from the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of October 16, 2024. Two parts. First part is for all directors, second part for area directors only. Director Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. We have items in the first section, C1, C2, C3, R1, and R3, and if no one wants any of those pulled, I would move those items. They've already been published.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Those carry.
The next section for electoral area directors only, we have R4, R5, R6, R7, R8, and R9, and I would move those items as well.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
That concludes my report.
Thank you.
And CR3 is a report and recommendations from the Sport Tourism Event Grant Subcommittee report of a meeting of October 18, 2024.
Just before you read those, I'm going to go to Director Douglas.
Yeah, I'm going to step out for this one. I'm chair. I have a child that's in the Duncan Dynamics Gymnastics.
Okay.
You can, did you want to pull that aside? And then you can be part of
Oh.
any discussion on the others, if that is more appropriate? Is there anybody else that needs to declare a conflict?
How do we do that?
I would move all but,
All but.
move all but the gymnastics grant.
Number 2.
So all the items except for number 9 have been moved and seconded. Discussion?
As a member of this committee, I would like to speak to it if that's possible, please.
Of
Thank you,
course.
Chair. Again, another great subcommittee meeting. Real quick, with these meetings, I do want to take the opportunity to thank Ms. Karen Chrysanthopoulos. She's been doing great work through this whole time, and I think with the great help of Mr. Elzinga has made many great spreadsheets and reports that make the process very easy. But I do believe at this particular meeting, it may be the last that Mr. Elzinga can confirm that we will unfortunately not have Ms. Chrysanthopoulos helping us because now it's in the realm of the ACDEV team, lead sport tourism. So if it was being that it's the last time we're going to have that great part of the team helping the committee members, I just want to acknowledge them and thank them for the work that they've done since this committee was formed. And say the good work they do will be missed, but I'm sure we're going to be in good hands with the ACDEV team that now is leading this initiative. So I just wanted to say that. And then as well, real quick, again, huge. It's pushing on the point of triple the amount of applications coming in and funding level that we're able to provide. So there's a lot of hard work of finding out who gets and what. There's a lot of good work of trying to find equity across the region, so make sure that no one particular area is weighted as much. And then there's also been a lot of good effort on up and coming new sports to give support and initiative to that as well. So diversity of sports, diversity of location, and as well, definitely really supporting, there's a rise in the area we're seeing in female-led sports. So there's been a good initiative from the board, and there is no real policy in there. Well, there is a bit, but the board's been really open to finding ways to find equity within what they're doing. And then a big thing is a lot of baseball back on the roster this year. So, but the biggest thing, I thank you for the time, was just to thank staff for the work they did and welcome the transition to the new team. So While I didn't get to make the motion, I was beat to it by our efficient board. I will be supporting a vote in favor of the recommendations as presented.
Thank you. Looking around the room, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, those motions carry. So Director Douglas, I'll give you a second to step out. So we have a mover for number 9. Thank you, Director Istash, seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Go ahead, Mr. Robbins.
Moving to CR4, which is a report and recommendations of the Committee of the Whole today. I have that report. There were 4 recommendations. The first recommendation that CVRD renew and update the existing Cowichan Local Authority Emergency Management Agreement by 1 year to December 31st, 2025, with options for renewal with its member municipalities. Do you want to do it as a block?
Director Morrison, were you moving them all? Got it. So let's read
Okay.
them all.
That the CVRD initiate negotiations with its member municipalities for an updated schedule to the Cowichan Local Authority Agreement, including the recommendations of the CAO advisory for a technical advisory function, improved communications coordinations, and a stipulation to activate a regional response for all emergencies within the CVRD. Third recommendation that the CVRD pause any development towards a standalone regional emergency management organization. And finally, recommendation 4, that the CVRD begin the development of an updated regional emergency management service bylaw that reflects the local government's requirements for the Emergency and Disaster Management Act 2023 and provides a template for member municipality emergency management bylaw development.
So those have been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Mr. Robbins.
Which moves us to director reports. We have a verbal report from Director Nicholson as the CVRD representative of the Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Climate Leadership Team with regards to the Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities VICC 2024 Virtual Climate Summit.
Director Nicholson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. So I'm your representative, and the secretariat is the Clean Energy Association. And this is my annual report back to you on climate change and our work to help accelerate action at the local level, which is what that committee is all about. And I think, the report is really timely because I attended the Watershed Board's recent public talk about why 84,000 fish died in the Cowichan River in 2023. And, it's really the accumulative stresses resulting from low flows and high temperatures, combined with other inappropriate land use practices that really resulted in a devastating fish kill. So that's really about climate change, and we're experiencing in real time now how rapidly changing climate is affecting all aspects of the health of our society. So I don't want to go on too much about this, but I do. Very recently, there was a Bioscience published a report which analyzes the recent trends in the vital signs of the planet, because you really need to think about the planet as a living creature. And it's sobering and scary, honestly, and it's hard to know the extent of the adaptations that we are going to have to make around here in the region and I think we're really a very lucky society compared to most, but we need to make adaptations. And the costs are going to be, I don't know what the costs will be, but they're going to be enormous. So it's really interesting when we're talking about our budgeting, because we do have responsibility to really take some leadership on some of the adaptations we need to make. So it's going to be hard. And I really appreciate being on the VICCCL team. So it's an opportunity to put our issues here in the Cowichan Valley in sort of a broader regional context, sort of the island context. And in May of this year, the team, in conjunction with the staff network for the climate, Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Climate Staff Network, held what we hope will become an annual climate summit to kind of share what we learn with each other to figure out ways we can collaborate and advocate together, because a lot of the issues are not within our control. So it was virtual, it was attended by elected folks and staff from across the region, and hopefully some of you attended, I don't know if you did, but our goal was to support accelerating climate action. And there was a lot of showcasing of local and regional initiatives, and Keith Lawrence from our Environmental Services Group did Cowichan good with his presentation. It was about building capacity and relationships, getting to know different people in the different areas and where you might be able to share learnings and so forth, and identifying collaboration opportunities. And based on the work we've undertaken during the past several years, the leadership team focused on 4 themes, and I think they're really important ones: land and water resiliency, sustainable transportation, which we were just talking about, food security, and buildings. And I really encourage you to read the report that was in your board package I think a week or two ago, and particularly the summary on page 16. So the conclusions regarding advocacy priorities are really worth bringing to your attention, because when we think about what we need to do when we go to AVICC and UBCM, and what we could also do in addition to taking advantage of those opportunities, there are definitely things that we share with all the regional districts on the island and Sunshine Coast. So land and water resiliency, the summary, the conclusion was advocacy to increase regulation, oversight and enforcement of forestry management practices affecting watersheds. Surprise. Increase funding to protect critical watershed lands in the ENN land grant area. The transportation sustainability was about advocacy for increased transit funding and support to intercommunity transportation. They're looking for an interagency working group to coordinate and advocate for a system shift. MOTI change, including better active transportation support for rural areas. On the food security front, advocate for a watershed-based governance model to support food security. Food security is a growing issue, and it's all tied to water. And then buildings, and I thought this was a really interesting one because we don't really talk about this very much, it seems, here, but they proposed advocating for adoption of a property assessment clean energy program. So and their acronym is PACE. So PACE programs allow a property owner to implement energy or other eligible improvements without a large upfront cash payment. So property owners that voluntarily choose to participate in the PACE program repay their improvement costs over a set time period, typically 10 to 20 years, through property assessments, which are secured by the property itself and paid as an addition to the property owner's property tax bills. Non-payment generally results in the same set of repercussions as a failure to pay any other portion of your bill. So, I mean, there were some good ideas, and there are things that are of common interest, I think, throughout the region, and we really should, I think, network and coordinate with people a lot more on the advocacy front. That's my report.
Thank you so much, Director Nicholson. This was such a fulsome report, and I commend you for being, I think, the first one to come forward this year. I find it so valuable. I mean, we're all appointed to different committees, and so we all go off and do those, and to have this time to bring that information back to this table is so useful for the rest of us that don't get to go. Any,
A good plug for all
and
the rest of it, for the rest
a
of it.
plug for all the other directors and the committees that you are on and the reports that you can bring before the end of the year. Any questions? Director Douglas.
Just want to thank Director Nicholson for the report, and interested to learn more about the conversations about the private managed forest lands, and you also mentioned the buyback of the ENN land grant lands as well. But I know we've got a big agenda ahead of us, so perhaps after this meeting we could connect. I could just hear a bit more about those discussions.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, Mr. Robbins.
We're going to move to staff reports. SR1 is a report from Emergency Management Division with regards to Next Generation 911 TELUS Local Government Agreement. There is a recommendation before you, and the author of that report is...
Do we need to read out that recommendation?
The recommendation that CVRD enter into a Next Generation 911 Local Government Service Agreement with TELUS Communications, Inc. for the provision of next generation 911 emergency services for a period of 5 years with automatic renewal for successive periods of 5 years each.
So that's been moved. Just wondering if you have a seconder, get it on the table. Seconded. Welcome.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Merrick Grider. I'm the Manager of Emergency Communications within Emergency Management Cowichan. You don't see me very often, but here I am. So with your permission, I have a short presentation about Next Generation 911 that I could move forward with.
Sure, go ahead.
Just have to locate it on the computer.
Just make sure to share it on the WebEx. Share your screen. Yeah, great.
Okay. So Next Generation 911, we've been operating the same 911 system since inception in the early 1990s. Our current state is the CVRD has a partnership with the Regional District of Nanaimo and the City of Nanaimo to deliver 911 services for our respective citizens. 911 calls are forwarded to ECOM. We have a contract. The partnership has a contract with ECOM to provide the primary call-taking services. And once those calls are received, they're downstreamed, as they say, to police dispatch, ambulance dispatch, and North Island 911 for fire dispatch, which is also a contract that the CVRD holds on behalf of the fire departments in our region. So that's where we're at today. The 911 system or the contract is supported by a call levy in those regions on landline telephones, but not mobile phones. So it's limited as the usage of landlines goes down, but increasing calls for cell phones goes up. So I'll talk more about that later. So we're semi-fortunate that the call levy tends to cover our cost until very recently for the entire cost of the 911 contract. So back in 2017, the CRTC, or the Canadian Radio Television Telecommunications Commission, has directed the telecommunication carriers to implement Next Generation 911. So that is currently scheduled to happen on March 4th of next year. However, there's an asterisk there because that date is in question now. It might be delayed quite a few years, possibly 3 more years. So in British Columbia, the designated carrier for 911 or Next Gen 911 is TELUS Communications. So I have a short video here that explains what exactly Next Generation 911 is. I'm not sure if that can be shared though. Is Chase still here? No. Let's see, I'll try and share, play the video. It's only 3 minutes long, so it shouldn't take too long.
For more than 4 decades, the public has turned to 911 for help during emergencies, and we've always been there. Basic 911 technology is essentially the same today as it was 40 years ago. But along the way, we've made some enhancements to the system to accommodate new technologies, like cell phones, location tracking, and now texting to 911. But that's getting harder to do. Technology is constantly evolving, now faster than ever before. And as the world adapts to keep up, it's our duty to keep up as well. Why? Because people expect 911 to work no matter what. They assume that they can reach 911 via text, picture, or video messaging, and they expect to get help quickly from any device at any time. It's time to make that concept a reality. Next Generation 911 transitions us from yesterday's technology to a faster, more flexible, resilient, and scalable system, enabling 911 to keep up in the future. So what is NG 911? In short, it's an IP-based system that allows information to flow seamlessly across the 911 system, from the public to first responders and beyond. It's much more than just new computers. NG911 is an evolving system of hardware, software, standards, policies, and training that will eventually lead to safer, faster, and more informed responses. It provides improved interoperability with first responders, sharing life-saving information instantly. It's the most efficient backup plan to make sure all calls are answered when there's a call overload, power outage, or a natural disaster. It's better services to the public and more ways to access help through 911, such as text, video, automatic crash notification, and more. And emergency responders say it will provide the most accurate information about the situation, allowing them to not only save lives, but to do their jobs more effectively. Saving lives, gaining efficiencies, adapting to the future. That's what NG911 does. NG911 is fundamentally about sharing information with others. That can only happen with a plan. Formal transition plans address governance and standards development, update existing laws, standardize systems and training, and identify funding options. Many states have already developed plans and are adopting components of NG911. Working together, each state, region, county, and city has the power to determine how to make its transition to NG911. So what's your role? First responders, legislators, and 911 system employees will each play a role in making NG911 happen. Through collaboration and education, we can ensure this new system will best serve our communities. Learn more about how you can help by getting involved in the conversation about Next Generation 911 today.
Okay, so that obviously had a bit of a USA flavor there, but all of the same principles apply to Canada and British Columbia as well. So, okay. So, talking about frameworks and governance and systems and contracts and everything, it's quite complex. This diagram is my attempt to kind of detail the complexity, and I've missed a number of things, a number of linkages, and so on and so forth. But essentially, we have the CRTC providing this mandate to the telecom carriers, and it's a trickle-down effect from there. So all of these agencies, governments, organizations are all involved with making Next Generation 911 work, ostensibly by March of next year. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be delayed. Just the sheer complexity of it all to make it all work, including all the dispatch centers. The military is actually involved in certain senses. So, with regards to 911, as the CVRD, we provide it to our citizens. So we're essentially right in the middle. So this is a large part of my role in the coming years to try and navigate us through all these governance and technical systems and so on and so forth. We're kind of lucky in the sense that a lot of the technical heavy lifting will be done by TELUS and ECOM, which are doesn't put a lot of technical burden on the CVRD itself. So, as far as costs go, there are no direct costs to the CVRD as a result of NextGen. So that's to say that we won't be receiving a bill from the CRTC or TELUS or any other body. There will or could be indirect costs to the CVRD through contract negotiations with ECOM 911 and North Island 911 as fire dispatch. That's a big unknown at this time because some of their costs may not be downloaded to us as the CVRD because they've received a lot of grant funding from the province of British Columbia, which I'll talk about in a slide or two. The one impact, sort of a workload impact that will happen or will impact the CVRD as well as its member municipalities and the First Nations in our region is highly detailed mapping needs to come. So NextGen will start to look at 3D mapping for incidents. So if you're on a high floor of a skyscraper or a high office tower, the system will map to that area, so the firefighters and responders need to go. So it'll location-based routing of emergency services. There's going to be a need for 72-hour mapping updates. So if a subdivision is approved, it needs to go into next gen within 72 hours. That's the recommendation from the CRTC. So I'll be reaching out to our municipal partners and other organizations to work on upgrading our maps. However, it's a very long-term scope out to 2028 and as long as 2035. So we're looking at 7-8 years from now. So it's quite a long, even 10 years. So quite a long time. To speak about the grant funding, the province has provided $150 million of funding. The bulk of that went to ECOM, as they are the primary 911 call taker for the entire province generally. $3 million went to North Island 911 as a fire dispatch center. And then each regional district and municipality received $45,000 each for mapping or anything related to next gen. So I'll be reaching out to the municipalities on that. Discussions have already happened internally with the CVRD. And there's also more funding on a project basis, up to $100,000 available on an application, which regional governments or different agencies can apply for funding based on projects. We haven't identified anything yet, but we don't necessarily know what we need to get into. So it's a bit of wait and see on this application funding. Alberta has an Emergency 911 Act, which establishes a levy on wireless phones. So it creates a large source of funding for 911 and secondary dispatch centers. So that takes the cost away from local governments. In Alberta, it takes away from the counties and municipalities. And the revenue is distributed straight to the 911 centers and secondary dispatch centers. So that would take, if something similar happened in BC, that would take the CVRD out of the mix for 911 funding. However, it's all I know now, BC is considering it, but there's no concrete information on when that might happen. So they're looking at it. And that Provincial 911 Act has been endorsed by UBCM since 2004. So it's been on the agenda for 20 years now. So. And finally, the report in front of you today suggests requests approval to sign an agreement between TELUS and the CVRD. And this is to replace the 911 agreement we signed with BC Tel in 1993. Now there is an asterisk there. We almost have to sign it by federal order. So unfortunately it's not. We basically need to approve it. So, and that's it for me. If there's any questions.
Well, thank you for giving us the idea that we have some power here to make a decision.
Sorry.
Okay, I'll take a speakers list. I've got Wilson, McClinton, Abbott. Go ahead, Director Wilson.
Thank you very much for that. It's an essential service, no two ways about it. I like the idea of this 3D mapping. Pretty clever stuff there. You mentioned that there's 45K per regional district and muni. So with our 6 participants, you would get 270K? Or do the munis keep their own money and we keep our own money?
They would keep their own money. So the CVRD has received its 45 with some financial finagling, but so we received 45. The munis would keep their money unless we talk with the municipalities about a regional project, which may be advantageous because certain municipalities have a mapping that needs to be updated. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So we might pool our funds to make that happen.
That's the kind of thing I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Director McClinton.
Thank you, Chair. I've called 911 once in my life. It was last summer on the way back from Lake Cowichan. There was a car stopped in the middle of the highway. The gentleman was having a stroke. I helped him, and I called. I had barely a bar, and the call dropped while I was talking to the operator.
Right.
I'm just curious if this will solve that problem in those, relatively high populated areas that have no service.
Unfortunately, no. A lot of that the result of having no bars is more about cell towers and where they're situated. I believe there's one on the agenda later today. But the cell phone companies are making strides to expand their towers. There's quite a few applications out there, even just in our region. And once the cell service is improved in those areas or gaps, then of course the next gen will take advantage of the location sharing, because it'll turn on your cell phone to provide exactly where you are, so first responders won't have to come and look for you.
Follow up?
Thank you, Chair. Any chance you'd be able to provide us with some strategic locations that we should be prioritizing to approve? Because I know they can be quite contentious.
Some of that information was named in the recent studies done by Economic Development. My focus is more on the fire dispatch system, on that, making sure that radio system works. So we could probably look at those economic development studies to find those where the gaps are.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think where cell towers go is not our jurisdiction, right? Do you want to follow up, or?
Did we not? We'll take it offline.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
okay.
Director Abbott and then Martman.
Thank you, Chair. Good report. I'm intrigued, and maybe you can explain, and we probably have no fallback, but 72 hours redoing the GIS mapping, you'd suggested that if we approve a subdivision, that it would instantly go out. It takes us a long time to get a subdivision approved. Why the necessity for 72 every 3 days?
There's a lot of problems, as the director just mentioned, of trying to find people that call in for help. And part of the problem is lack of accurate mapping. So the systems will be more automated moving into the future. So the idea with the 72-hour update cycle is to create, there'll be a base map, and then to make sure it doesn't go out of date. And we already have problems with this where subdivisions are approved, addresses created, the roads are done, and then the barriers come down, but then the information doesn't get to the dispatch centers. So people have called in and say, I'm on, Tape Measure Road, and that's not in the system. So the idea behind that update is to make sure that's as up to date as possible. And it's almost, is to not to get too far out of date, and it ultimately leads to increased public safety. So.
And I think you intimated that this is probably good for our GIS department. It's a side benefit.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunities to increase our base mapping. We have to bring our mapping up to the so-called Next Gen 911 standard. And there may be opportunities to increase base level mapping that will benefit all sorts of different systems within the CVRD and our municipalities. So.
Director Martman.
Thank you. Thanks for the report, and I was wondering what the tape measure was for. Now I know it was your prop.
I needed a name, so that's sitting there. I'm not sure whose that is.
Yeah, there's a long time ago, you'd call into 911 and they'd ask your location. You say, well, you go a mile past Mrs. Jones's place, turn left, and then go 2 more miles and get to Mrs. Smith's place. And then you have to get out of your car and walk 100 yards. So yes, we've come a long way.
Yeah.
In the last 30 years. My question, though, is around, I think someone saw it as an opportunity for GIS, but that's only if it's funded. So does $45,000 even come close to funding? Do we have the staff? Is this a budget item? I guess I'm asking for. And is it anything that we should be worried about this budget, or is it 3 years down the road kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Unfortunately, there's a lot of unknowns. I've had a few discussions with IT and our IT division and GIS, and we're looking at probably using that $45,000 for possibly a consultant to do an assessment, or maybe add a software or a server or software to house the data. We're not quite sure. As a base level, if the March 4th 2025 date sticks, we're going to use the 911 data set that's established at North Island 911. But moving forward, there will be a workload. We just don't know what that will be. and how much workload equals how much funding. And that's when we can start looking at the regional projects, or we may come back for a budget, like possibly a staff person, or even contract funds or something like that. So unfortunately, a lot of that's up in the air as we wait for a lot of these systems to work their way through. So ECOM as our primary call taker, and a number of other centers across the country have asked for a delay. So that may put the implementation of NextGen off till 2028. So then that's 3 to 4 years, 3.5 years from now. So we have, well, unfortunately we have to wait, and it's going to take time.
Director Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. Is it a budget item? Yeah, it's a budget item, and can you correct me if I'm wrong? The cell phone companies are putting a levy on their bills currently. They are collecting, call it gobs of money, and we don't get a share in it in BC. There was a great deal of pressure brought to bear in the province to bring the legislation in. They didn't, but they threw a bunch of grant money at this. So we still have to pay for our fire service dispatch, and we don't have any idea as far as drafting a legislation. I know we're interregning them and the whole bit, but we still have those costs. We still have to put it in our budget, and there's significant funds out there that aren't being allocated. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what happened in Alberta, and after much lobbying and much pressure, I guess, they passed that law to take advantage of that funding that's already being taken by the cell phone companies. But without provincial legislation, we can't grab that. So I've been at a meeting recently where a project manager from Citizen Services says they were thinking about it, but didn't want to talk about it. So, which is a common refrain from those. Yeah. So.
Sorry, just secret conversation happening here. Thank you. Great discussion, and thanks for bringing that up, Director Morrison, because I thought I was crazy that I thought it was on my cell phone bill, and sounds like a potential AVICC resolution that we can bring forward. I see no more hands. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much, Mr. Greider, for your presentation. Okay, so next we have, go ahead, Mr. Robbins.
There's a series of reports from EMC with regards to endorsing some applications, and I didn't know if there was an appetite to move them as a block. I'm not sure. I don't believe there was any other presentations. No.
No presentation, great. That's been moved and seconded. Do we need to read them out?
They have been published. I'm happy to read them out if you'd like, but they have been published.
I want to follow whatever rules we're supposed to, and there is a comment, I think you have the change in the wording to one, right?
Yeah, if you could have a block motion for SR2, SR3, and SR4, and then I'll correct SR5 after that.
Okay, so moved and seconded, SR2, 3, and 4. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motions carry.
Which moves us to SR4. And I was thinking about using my new assistant to go through SR4, but
SR5.
I think I have it, or SR5, right? But I think I got it, right? Yeah. So SR5 is with respect to the application for $1.85 million to the Ministry of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness for Disaster Resiliency Fund. For system upgrades on Third Avenue Street culvert for the city of Duncan.
Right, so this is the one that was correct in the report and just incorrect in the agenda.
Correct.
Okay, do I have a mover? Seconder? Any discussion? Director Martman?
So Just a question of, we're helping prevent flooding, right? That's what this grant is for. And I want some of that water. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Someone build a reservoir. Any other discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. SR6.
SR6 is a staff report from the Utilities Division with regards to an interim letter agreement with Cowichan Tribes for Cowichan Bay Sewer Service. The recommendation that the Cowichan Valley Regional District enter into an interim letter agreement with Cowichan Tribes regarding sewer servicing in Cowichan Bay for up to 24 months.
So that's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Director Nicholson?
I wanted to ask a question about where the units come from.
Mr.
Ms. Thompson?
Oh, Ms. Thompson's here. Is here.
Hello, thank you. Through you, Chair, to the Director. So for this particular, as you know, Cowichan Bay and Area D sewer system, the CBRD sewer system doesn't have any capacity units currently. So Cowichan Tribes, for this 16 units of the proposed development that is referred to in the servicing agreement, they are from Cowichan Tribes.
Any other discussion or questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Mr. Robbins.
We're going to move into bylaws. These recommendations are for the entire board. B1, the recommendation that CVRD bylaw number 4536, Arbutus Mountain Estates Water System Service Amendment requisition limit increase $140,512 bylaw 2024 be adopted.
Moved, seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
B2, recommendation that CVRD bylaw number 4559 Mill Springs Sewer System Service Amendment Boundary Extension bylaw 2024 be adopted.
Moved, seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
B3, the recommendation that CVRD bylaw number 4613 Cobble Hill Village Sewer System Service Area Amendment Boundary Extension bylaw 2024 be granted first, second, and third readings.
Moved, seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
And B4, the recommendation that CVRD bylaw number 4614 Mill Springs Sewer System Service Area Amendment Boundary Extension bylaw 2024 be granted first, second, and third readings.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, it's about over an hour. I think let's take a 10-minute break and then come back. You okay with that? You look shocked.
We've had staff here from this morning still.
This
and
is for
they're giving you the signal to if you wouldn't mind considering their work right now. Give them
I know, I feel, yeah. Let's take a 5-minute. Oh, I think it's not just you. We'll take 5 minutes.
R6, R8, and R9 are referred. Okay. The mayor is just two-faced there.
We are live. Welcome back, Mr. Robbins.
We're moving on to new business that was referred from the committee of the whole from earlier today. I called NB1, which is a report from the Facilities and Transit Division with regards to boardroom renovation project conceptual drawings. There is a recommendation with respect to moving this process forward.
Mr. Brown, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So the overall scope of this project has evolved since it was originally proposed as a room expansion, moving walls to try to generate more square footage. But anticipated increases in board membership makes new furniture the highest priority at this point. Current members, you each have approximately 2.5 feet of space each, except for the chairperson, with no additional space for new members without overcrowding. The options presented in both phases 1 and 2 are conceptual in nature at this point. Detailed design, it cannot proceed until a design direction is provided. The lowest cost options that maximize functionality of the space is the recommended concept. It'll provide more room for board members, so 3 feet each and 4 for the chairperson, with capacity at the table for future increases in membership. The biggest drawback of this is that public gallery space will be reduced in phase 1 to either 20 or 28 seats from the current 34. Phase 2 will increase gallery capacity, but the lower cost options, which was investigated last year, will likely only reclaim the seats lost in phase 1. And that's at the low end estimate that I provided in the report. Longevity of the recommended option is expected to be 5 to 10 years, after which time additional furniture and or gallery space may be required to meet demands of the day. The cost ranges that we provided in the report for the recommended option, it's very general. I would say it ranges from partial furniture replacements or strategic furniture replacement at the high end or at the low end, up to the high end estimate of being a full replacement of all tables, chairs, everything in the room. If a concept is selected and with your feedback, we can refine the scope of the project and proceed towards detailed design, ideally by the end of the year or in early 2025.
Thank you. I have Director Morrison on my list, and I'll look around for any other hands. Go ahead, Director Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. So I was a little surprised with this report because it really, I thought we'd sort of asked for options. We were given some preliminary ideas of what might happen, and then I think there was some hesitation at the last time, or I don't know which meeting it was at, committee of the whole, whatever, in regards to cost. But I'm really surprised at the fact that we're contemplating an option that's got at best a 5 to 10 year useful time frame. So I gather timing's important, the urgency and the likes, but I'm sort of reluctant to support either of these when maybe we have to take some walls out. And it seems like that idea has just been completely eliminated, and I don't know when that happened or if we gave a specific resolution to say, don't consider that. So can I get a little further explanation as to how we came to this and we didn't consider a full, longer lasting, more time efficient solution?
Yeah, thank you. So I would say that we have definitely considered it throughout this process, and that is why we have identified that in phase 2 to provide more detailed feedback on what is feasible and possible. There are options that have been floated about, from removing this wall, sorry, not speaking to the microphone, to expanding north into the committee rooms. But in order to achieve that, we'd really need to enlist the help of an architect. And we know that the costs of doing any of that work is significant. When it comes to this room and with what we are recommending at this point, it's about trying to maximize the existing space that we have. However, we are definitely, I've included it as a phased approach. If the board would like to expand the scope, that's something that we could consider, be open to.
Are there any other comments? Director Nicholson, Martman, was that? And then Deck? I'll start.
I was just prepared to move the recommendation, so I can wait.
Director Martman?
Thank you. Could you remind me of the urgency of this for increasing the board space?
So I'll look to Ms. Miles Wilson, I think, can provide more feedback on that than I can.
Ms. Miles Wilson, welcome.
Yeah.
Not you, Director Wilson, sorry, Ms. Miles Wilson is on her way up.
Thank you. So there's a couple of linkages here. So originally, when we had actually going back to the Growing Communities Funds, we'd actually originally started talking about this space as an opportunity to expand and be able to welcome First Nations members to the table in the near future. And so that was where this discussion really had started. But the second part of it is the fact that we do need to make a decision on the orientation of this room and your table to link to the technology upgrade. So that's partly another reason why it's here in front of you. Because we're trying to kind of accomplish two things here. Speaking to the other comments about the larger renovation, there was my recollection of the last meeting is there was a real hesitancy to move forward with a very expensive option right now. So there's been an effort by staff here to try to phase it in so that we could have a more moderate expenditure, still accomplishing the things that we need to in the short term.
Thank you for that. I was just wondering, can this, even what's being presented, be phased in so it moves a little bit further out in a budget item? And the reason I don't know if there's areas in it that like chairs. Do we need chairs if we've got chairs? I can see if you change the configuration, but do you have to change the chairs? I mean, I'm looking where there might be areas of savings.
Yeah, I think there are definitely opportunities for cost savings when it comes to the furniture. Obviously to increase capacity at this table, like I said in the report, it does need to get bigger. That's probably the largest cost. We do have capacity for staff here. However, once this table increases, we start to get that kind of snowball effect where the table gets bigger and then, the existing staff tables are then too wide and people have difficulty moving around them. But there are items like chairs that could be retained. So we would definitely look very seriously at that to try to reduce the overall cost.
Director Deck.
Thank you, Chair. I'm prepared to vote in favor of the recommendation. I'm just wondering, though, with the reduction in chairs, and even when we have this many chairs, there is an occasion or occasions throughout the year that there would be a crowd of people that wouldn't be accommodated now or in future. So are there any plans to find ways for greater public participation when that's necessary? Maybe it's not even a part of this question. It isn't, just turn my microphone off.
That's okay. I think the consideration we would give to overflow capacity, and that was originally why the hallway behind us was designed the way that it is, was to be able to accommodate additional public gallery in that space. But yeah, if we have, I think my understanding, it's rare that we have meetings that go beyond current capacity. And if we have meetings that come up where we know there is going to be an excess of, we're not going to have enough space for public gallery, then I think that would be a planning exercise separately to find either a different facility or something like that. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can't see the number on the wall that we're allowed to have in here, but everyone may not have a chair. 58? Yeah. That's already not enough when we have 200 people come here, which is rare, maybe only once a year. Director Istash and then Wilson.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the report, Mr. Brown. That last comment on, I like where Director Martin was going, like what's the lowest amount we can do? And Ms. Miles Wilson had answered part of my question it sounds like we do need to have some of the modifications to support the technology. We can't just do the technology. So thank you for answering that. So then on that, I do support what Director Martin was saying. And for tables and chairs and modifications, I think as appropriately small budget as possible, with the focus being on the IT. And then on that comment on being that we're going to have a reduction in gallery space, I think about what takes place in North Cowichan. In the IT, were we putting monitors in the hallway so that the people in the hallway can read? So that alleviates that, so that when we have gallery capacity at North Cowichan, we have a secondary meeting room that the public gets to all go sit in and just watch the live feed there. So that way, we don't need to have the people in here. We can go with the cheapest option internally, and they'll be able to watch in the hallway. So I guess that's our intention then? Great. And then just a quick little point of privilege, great photo on Chair Stone's parting gift. So it was great to see that photo of a staff member utilized.
You. You're the photographer.
Yeah, as
Wow.
a fellow landscape nature photographer lover that Mr. Brown is, we shared a lot of photos together in the past, and I wanted to acknowledge him, so great, thanks.
Thanks. Director Wilson.
All done. Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got the answer.
Okay. You wanted a, so you want a round two? And Director McGonigal.
Thank you, Chair. As we move forward and enlarge this great group that we reside around, I think this could be a short-term stopgap while we anticipate larger First Nation groups joining us at this table. And there was discussion recently about a perhaps standalone meeting facility outside of 178 Ingram that could be a possibility in the future. So I don't want that to leave our discussion moving forward. The IT in here, as you may have noted from this morning, is imperative. So we don't all sound like we're in a bathtub, et cetera, et cetera. But moving forward, I see this as a stopgap as we move forward with a much larger board as we are anticipating in 5 to 10 years.
Thank you. Okay, I also have a question and comment, but I'll go to Director Martman first.
This might be the same as yours. We had an experience earlier this year where accessibility to podium was an issue. I didn't see anything in this that addressed that.
Yeah, I can comment on that. So with the interior design consultant that we've been working with, that was something that we brought up. So this podium, the concept is to have it as a sit-stand podium so that it can be lowered so people with accessibility or mobility needs can utilize it. And also it would be designed for one person or expandable for two, because typically delegations have two people. So one person so that it isn't taking up so much real estate in the room, but that is easily expanded. And I should say, just to add as well to that, that was part of the advantage of option A. The recommended option of the two designs was that because of the layout of the room, it's more accessible for members at this table, for staff, and for people accessing the podium.
Director Deck, round two.
Thanks, Lori. I meant to ask, thanks, Chair. I meant to ask about the barrier. What, do you have any sense about what it would look like? And how high it would be, and, what kind of a barrier are you talking about?
It's to be determined at this time. Yeah, it's something that we had brought up as a high priority with the interior design consultant, but because it is in just the conceptual phase right now, we don't necessarily have those kind of details available.
Thank you so much.
All right, Chair's turn. So yeah, I spent a lot of time reading this one and trying to go back and find recordings of what we'd talked about before, because it just seems different in my mind, and maybe that's just because I had a different opinion from the board. I respect the board's decisions. But was able to find that the last time we talked about this was in an informal workshop, so I wasn't able to actually go back and re-listen to what we all had said. But what I really remember was that, yes, this room is too small, and this table needs to grow to accommodate multiple First Nations that are in advanced treaty negotiations that we need to be able to accommodate at this table if we get there, if they want to join. We have Ladysmith might be having another member at the next election. We have Shawnigan Lake, if they breach 10,000, they might get another director. there's major projections in population growth for North Cowichan. I mean, this table really needs to grow. So my concern with the report is that the recommended option really only adds 2 seats. And so for me to be able to support that, I need to know that it's flexible to add. If that is if we go for option B with the IT setup, is it still easy to add more seats, or is it a whole redo again if we need more than those 2 seats?
Yeah, so the direction that we gave to the interior designer was to allow for, I believe it was up to 6 to 10 additional people at this table. And the table that is in the concept, I know that it does indicate 19 seats. However, that is with that 3-foot space, a little more luxurious, which I'm sure that many years ago, the space here at this table was a little more luxurious than it is now. So I think the idea is that over time, if we have to add people to that table, it could be expanded by adding more chairs. However, that's something we'll review with a consultant just to make sure that if we proceed with this design, that we make sure we can see that, because right now it's only seeing 19. That was something for us as well that was, a question. But based on the allocation of space per member, it does appear to me that we can add more people to that table over time.
Okay, I would also love windows. Director McClinton.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if sitting next to Mike and luxurious have ever been used in the same sentence, but here we are. Just curious, take your pick. Just curious what, ballpark, if you're able, what the cost of engaging with an architect might be. Just even a range would be, I think, very helpful for the board.
Okay, so engaging with an architect is only required if we have to make structural changes to this room. So we have engaged with an interior designer for these concepts because it's based on ideally not having to remove walls because of the cost. To engage with an architect, it really depends on the scope of what walls we would be removing and how much work is required. Typically, consultant fees are anywhere from 5 to 10% of the project cost of construction, or the construction budget. And I believe those soft costs have been worked into the rough estimates that are provided in the report. So I mean, a rough estimate, it's difficult to say unless we have a scope, but.
Yeah, I mean, so are we talking, can you say hundreds of thousands or millions?
For the architect fees?
No, yeah, to do that.
Just for architect fees to design, to remove walls, I would say we'd be looking at anywhere from, 15,000 to 30,000. Again, it depends on who we get and what the scope is.
Thank you.
Director Douglas.
Just hoping to clarify some of the budget numbers here. So we've got the 240,000 we approved for the IT upgrades. But with regards to schedules C and D, I think I've got them right here. So, attachment C is the 180,000+, and then attachment D is the 70,000 for the furniture. So I understand the 70,000 for the furniture, but 180,000, is that the same as phase 2 for the upgrades and the renovations?
Yeah, that's correct. So that was originally applied for for what we're calling phase 2 in this report. However, even with phase 1, depending on which direction we proceed and the direction that we're given from you folks, there may be, modifications in the room that aren't considered furniture. So things like, if this table does get longer, then we might have to modify lighting. Or if, depending on where this podium is situated, we may have to core into the concrete under this floor for $3,000 to $5,000 and move our IT infrastructure a little bit. So I think that both of those, we would still want to proceed with submitting those this year, because we would pull from both of those sources of funds, either for furniture or for the capital improvements to the building.
Yeah, and the idea is when you got the more detailed designs, they'll come back to the board with a firmer number on what those costs are going to be.
Yep.
And then the 240,000 for the IT upgrades is just a separate pot of funding from those other two.
It is, yeah.
All right, got it, clear. Thanks.
Director Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And are you done over there? Okay. As we're talking numbers, one of the things about any project, as we all know, as it goes ahead, the numbers get bigger. They always do. We could say it's going to cost $1 million. Well, when it's finally finished, it probably come in at 1.5 million or something like that. Just numbers we're throwing around here. There was some time, and perhaps Daniel Mill, perhaps our CAO can answer this one. There was some talk about a separate boardroom at one time, instead of doing all these modifications that may or may not lead to other things. Is that still on the table, or was that finished with?
So you're talking at like the Banks Creek facility, like that
No, not
separate
there.
board?
I think there was somewhere here in Duncan that we were looking at as well.
I don't know. Do you have anything, any knowledge,
what was it,
Mr. Brown?
I don't have any knowledge on that, no, sorry.
Okay. Daniel, do you remember that one?
Just repeat the question for Ms. Miles Wilson.
Was there some talk about a separate, looking at a separate place?
Oh. A separate location for the boardroom is what you're referring to?
Yeah.
So we had explored that. We had even done some site tours, and we had confirmed that the preference was to actually stay here at home base. So that is why we redirected our efforts to this project in phases. We, as you recall, lots of spaces needed a lot of work. It's been a while since, but yes, we did have that clarity, and that's why we've chosen this approach.
And it didn't really seem feasible at the time?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Director Morrison, I'm going to go to Director Justice, just because he's a first-timer.
Thank you. Since this is a, excuse me, a 5 to 10 year stopgap, what we're talking about, I wonder if we could get a little bit more clarity about the likely number of seats, like a minimum and maximum, that we might need over that 5 to 10 year period. Excuse me. Partly because I think we don't have enough information to really decide. I mean, my understanding is that no matter how many people Shawnigan has, because it's an electoral area, it will only have one director. I am also of the understanding that Ladysmith wouldn't get a second director just because of the timing of the 2026 census, which would have to be complete before the 2026 elections. I think if amalgamation of the South electoral areas went ahead, you'd probably drop down to 2 representatives. And I don't know myself how many First Nations are likely to be eligible to have a seat at the table in the short 5 to 10 year period. So I wonder if we could get a bit more clarity about what the sort of minimum, maximum need for new seats would be over that short term.
I think, Mr. Brown, what you mentioned you were working off was 6 to 10, right? And was that direction from this board? Was that informed by staff? Maybe, thanks.
Factoring into the number 6 to 10 is some engagement with the Ministry of Indigenous Relations on where they're at with treaty negotiations and how that will potentially result in new members should they choose to come to this board. And then just general estimates on population growth to kind of account for some additional seats. So as mentioned, small addition in the short term with opportunity to expand to accommodate all the seats that we anticipate could be needing to have room at this table.
Is that good? Do you have a follow-up?
No. I would only say that I think it's, if we're talking about a short term, I think it's really important that we don't overguess the number that we're going to need.
Director Morrison.
Thank you. I think the question here that I think this all started with was essentially out-of-date technology, and we're addressing that, so great. The second consideration in this, in my mind, wasn't the comfort and ability for us to do, but the ability of our community to come and watch us do our business. And yes, some of that will be online, will be addressed by the technology upgrades. I'm a little concerned about doing this work to improve our working conditions and reducing the space for gallery. But given it doesn't seem there's an appetite to expand on this and to do a fulsome job that will keep us in good stead for 20 years plus. Let's get the technology done and do what we can, but be mindful of the fact that engaging with the community and having them come to watch their business be done is important. And sometimes it's a couple of times a year that you get a full gallery, and sometimes you have hot issues for weeks and weeks. So keep that in mind. Thanks.
Okay, so today you really need a decision on the orientation, correct? To move ahead with the technology. And in the report, I think you said if we wanted to move ahead with the architectural drawings, that this should be paused, like they can't simultaneously happen. I'm seeing a nod in the back. That's basically it. So, okay, I think we need to make a decision on technology because we need that, and that's coming in December, right? Yeah. So I'll look, Director McClinton.
Thank you, Chair. One more question, if I can. The timelines between what's being proposed and then engaging an architect to completion. If we go with an architect and go down that road, how much more time does it add compared to what you're proposing?
As a rough estimate, I would say by the time we engage with an architect, get them involved, go through the entire process, I would think that would add, at least 6 months to this process. So that would be pushing us back another year.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'd like to move the motion.
You want to move the recommendation?
Thank you, yes.
Seconded. Any more discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Director Wilson opposed. The motion carries. Thank you so much for walking us through that. Big decisions here. Yeah, and for waiting. Mr. Robbins.
We're going to move to new business number 2, the report from the Deputy CAO with regards to a Q3 2024 status update on the strategic plan.
Welcome, Mr. Postings. We're going to pay attention.
Good, standing O already?
Got to keep that blood flowing so our brain is still absorbing all the information that's going to come in these next 2 reports.
We're good to go? Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this item was before you this morning at the committee and has been moved to this afternoon. So what you have in the package, in your package there, is our second version or second round of our quarterly strategic update. So we did have the Q2 update back in July, and this is now your Q3 update for the periods of July, August, and September. And so we've now got into a process here where staff have been able to update and maintain an update status on all of the strategic priorities that the board has. So really, I think today was, I think I'd mentioned previously, and I'll talk about this with our capital plan status update, which is the next report, is that this report is evolving. We're as more information, as staff are adding more information about timelines and updates, the information will change and be updated, so there's more information for the board as well as the community. This report will be posted online on the website, just like the other one, so right under the corporate strategic plan. The new website, we're in the process of retaining a consultant to complete the new website, and this is one of the priorities in the sense of sharing information with that with the community and making it easily accessible for the strategic plans to be available, for the community to be able to access. So in the future, if you, as a board member or staff, this will be a location where we can direct people and say, here's the latest information. Please, feel free to have a look at that. If you have questions, we can go from there. So I don't have a presentation on this one. You have the report before you. The general managers are here if there's specific questions. If it's something we don't have an answer, we'll certainly get back and make sure the board is aware of what that information that's being requested. But at this point in time, it's an information report. There is on the first page highlighted a few highlighted projects. I won't go through those. You can see on the cover page there's a few highlighted projects, which you'll see that there has been a lot of work in the last quarter there, and many projects are still underway. The last piece I was going to mention specifically for the strategic plan is that our CAO and myself are working, and will be in the near future preparing a agenda for the Q4 check-in with the board. And so we'd spoken about that before, where we'd have an annual check-in with the strategic plan. So in January, when we present this report, we'll also have some time set aside to be able to review the priorities here. If there's some new, there is I'll use the term parking lot for some items that have come up in the last 6 months that that have been brought forward, which have not need to be considered, or there's changes to the strategic plan. So that'll happen in January, and we're working on that agenda right now. But yeah, happy to answer any questions relating to the report that's in your package there.
So I'll take a list. I've got Director Istash and then Martman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report, Mr. Postings. As always, the same comment I use at the North Cowichan table with the strategic plan updates is it's always impressive to see that the work that's been done or is ongoing, because often you're busy in the day-to-day and you forget how much has been accomplished and how hard staff works. So great on that. You answered my very first question has it been put on the website? That's being done. So then the second part of that question is, and first a thanks to staff, because I saw the CVRD social media blast on the first newsletter that just went out, which I shared around and tried to get North Cowichan people to sign up as well to that, because often they forget that they're part of the CVRD. So that was great in there. So my question is will this be in the next newsletter then? Or not until the website is ready? Would it be then at that time, I guess, would be probably the answer?
Yeah, through the chair to the director. Yes, so one of the things about the newsletter, which I believe hopefully you'll notice, is decisions that are made at the board level will make their way through the newsletter. And so if something like this has been received, would be attached to that. So the link to this on the website will be there and be noted. And so we want to make sure that the community, if it's through the newsletter or other means that we're communicating, they'll get that information. That will happen that way for sure. Yeah.
Director Martman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report, and I look forward to every one of these. The question I have, I think you partly answered in that we'll review this in the new year, the strategic plan piece. I think you said that. The piece that I didn't see in here is around agriculture. I didn't see any reference to anything being moved forward on agriculture. And I don't know if that's parked under a different placeholder, ACDEV, or how is that? Where is that, and should it be here, and what's missing? Because it is in our strategic plan, but not very highly profiled, maybe.
So, through the chair to the director. So, yeah, good question. So there are some specifics relating to agriculture have been part of the, well, I'll call it parking lot, or we've been determined parking lot. So items have been brought forward. Anything that is directly related to the actual current corporate strategic plan will be in here, and we'll have updates in here. But I know that there is, on the top of my head, I don't have that parking lot list there, but there are some actions that will be brought forward in January, and for further consideration, do they want to be implemented? Is there some adjustments to this plan that we could do that? So they are part of that. If there's something specific in here relating to agriculture that is in our current plan, happy to, look through that as well. But there is been some identified for the January session that the board has mentioned, yeah.
And I think that specifically, I'm looking for, when will we update an ag plan? When will we have an agricultural advisory committee? Those kind of specific details, but I think trying to link it through to where it all fits together so that it gets drawn out. Thank you.
Director Nicholson.
Thank you for the report. I am wondering what one is to think about things that are not on track.
So the question is when to consider things that are not, or the discussion related things are not on track?
Well, we're going to publish this, make it available publicly. So what will people think about things that are not on track?
Well, I think
Should we provide an explanation or?
Well, I think in most cases, and if there's not clarity on why it's not on track, typically the updates, what we're trying to do is we're trying to request staff to provide information related. And so under the update section there, we want to be able to note as much information of why potentially we are off track or we're not on track. Possibly the project has been not started due to other priorities that have come up, or maybe there's some information. So I would, if there's some areas that are not clear in the sense of the updates relating to why we're not on track, so that the community knows why things are either not started or not on track, we want to make sure that that information is in the updates. I know when we go through with our general managers and with the division managers, that's the intent of the updates, is to provide why potentially we are not started or behind a certain project. So if there are questions specifically about a project that's behind or noted behind under the status, happy to get that information why it is, because we want to make sure obviously the community is aware if they have questions.
Good. Director Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. Item 6.4, pursue provincial and federal funding to implement our internet and cellular connectivity strategy. And I think there's some telecommunications structure policy as well. It's not started yet, and I guess the frustration that I have is we received the report, seemed to be very heavy on quality of internet, didn't really discuss a lot about the lack of cellular capacity in areas. And I know up and down number 1, east coast of the island, there's pretty good service, but I count like 2 very distinct large areas of lack of coverage between here and my home. It's really, I think, about 5 really. If we're not going to be pursuing this until Q2 of 2025, that misses the provincial, and I know the province isn't doing much right now, but provincial budget for 2025, so it'll be into 2026. Is there any way that we can start to put our heads together sooner, or will be done the term before we can do any lobbying on this? Any thoughts?
Through the chair to the director, yeah, good question. So this one, we are currently working on the economic development strategic plan, and so it is noted within that strategic plan. That plan, you've had a presentation, the draft or the update. I think that was in the summertime. So we're very close to completing that strategy, and that currently right now this item is included in there. The reason why it hasn't been started is because we're weighing it with all the other activities that are being brought forward within that strategic plan and economic development. I will share though that the economic team is monitoring opportunities, funding opportunities, and as noted by the director, there isn't a lot right now, but they are ready if needed to pursue or bring to the board for consideration activities on that. But it is a aspect we just met on that with the consultant for the strategic plan yesterday, and it is included within there, or portions of that within the economic development strategic plan right now. So.
Okay. Any questions on, or did you have a little blurb for the second report as well? For R9?
That one I have a little blurb, so
Okay.
if that's okay, when ready, I can certainly. Do we want to, I have to then try and attempt to bring up a
Oh, there's a
slideshow. So,
presentation.
well, 3 slides, so I'm not going to overdo it here.
Well, now you have to follow.
Now I need to figure out how to do this. Where was Merrick?
Yeah.
Merrick, I hadn't
It
seen
was
him very often,
unreal.
and he just popped in here and videos and.
He was just like, switch to a video and came
That
back,
was
no
impressive.
issues.
Now I'm looking for, is there get some help possibly, please? Anyone? I don't even, please? Oh, it's Pat. It's Patrick. This might take a.
Are we not gonna do it?
I'm going to act it out.
Give us a verbal.
You just have me. Sorry, that's not.
Do you want, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. So, part of the discussion within your strategic plan talks about increasing regular updates relating to capital projects as well as strategic priorities. So we had spoken to the board through the process of preparing the strategic plan updates. And so the last number of months, we've been working on developing a capital plan project updates, a status report for you. So the last time that the actual capital plan listing was presented to the board was back in, I believe it was 2022, sometime in the fall 2022. And so we've been working with staff to take that information relating to the existing capital plan. So those are all the projects that have been going on. Some of these go back, and you'll see in your report there, go back to 2021, 2022. And this is a report that has pulled all that information together at the status. And you will see in the report there that it does highlight many completed projects, because some of these are a couple years old, but we wanted to bring it to the board's attention where some of these projects are, because we haven't provided this report for a number of years. And so what you have before you in the report that's in your package there, it looks similar to the other report, is a capital plan projects update. So this is what I'll call the Q3 report, but in this particular case, this goes back a number of years. We're trying to play some catch up in the sense of reporting. This report, similar to the corporate strategic plan, will also be posted on the website and available for the community to access, or to anyone to reference if they wish or need to. The report, what I was going to mention, similar to what we went through with the strategic plan report, is that the objective of this report is to provide current status updates relating to major capital projects that have been approved by the board through the financial plan. The content in the report does list things such as the status of the project. In the future, as we work through this, I was talking about evolution of these reports. We will be adding timelines right now where we have that information, but we're just vetting that, making sure that it's accurate as we move forward. So we'll make sure the future plans will have timelines as well. Our hope is and plan is to have this as a quarterly update, similar to the corporate strategic plan. So you'll receive this corporate strategic plan as well as the status of the capital projects. So you'll get this on a quarterly basis. Moving forward, the projects that are complete, they will be pulled off this. So, certainly if you want to look back at a report, say Q3, you'll see all the reports the projects that are complete. They won't be on the Q4 report. Just so that to save the sense of the volume of it, because right now there's quite a volume of information there. We're looking, obviously, if there's feedback from the board, if you wish in the future to provide feedback, that could happen in January when we get together during the workshop there, talking about the corporate strategic plan. We can also talk about how this format is working, so we're looking for feedback from the board at that time. I think the only other thing I was going to talk about is I talked a little bit about next steps. So this report, the capital report, is also going to assist in developing division work plans. So we're now, this information, now that it's all within the one software system that we're using, the strategic plan, the capital plan, it's going to help assist us in creating divisional work plans and department work plans. And so we will be able to easily access when the question comes up, what are the priorities? What is the work that's happening within the division or departments? We will pull that information very quickly and be able to determine, is there capacity, is there not capacity? Where are we with certain projects? So that's the goal and the objective of this. Just trying to think, I'd mentioned the website, so the new website, this will be, it'll posted on the existing website, but the new website, the way it's being developed is going to be much more front and center in the sense of how this is actually promoted and shared to the community. The newsletter, I actually captured that one, so we'll make sure this information is also shared on the newsletter as well. The one thing I was going to note about the capital plan progress update, it's not really, at this point in time, it's not intended to be like a financial report. It's more of a status report. Finance is working through some improvements related to their software system, and that's in the next year or so. So the hope is we will look at how that can be incorporated into this. But right now, it's more of a status report than it is a financial report. We can certainly, if there's questions about financials relating to certain projects, we can provide that. But right now, that's not the objective of this current plan right now. And if there's a project that's over budget or we're requiring further funds, we'd certainly come back to the board and request that through a staff report. But it's more, again, just for status reports, celebrate some of the big successes. And if you look at the last quarter, even the last year, there's been significant projects completed throughout the region there. So hopefully we can all celebrate those. And I know the staff I think the feedback we've got from staff, it's very appreciated to have it all in a document where they can pull and say, this is the stuff we've had success on, and celebrate that if those questions come up. So happy to answer any questions. And again, the GMs are here if there's any specific projects. If you don't have the question right here, there is on the right-hand side, there's a reference which department or division managers responsible, no problem with the way this is set up. You can contact that individual and be able to get that information right there. So yeah, hopefully this report is valuable, and we are certainly looking for feedback in the future about making sure that it is, a tool that the community is, happy in getting that information, and the board is as well. So yeah.
Thank you. Director Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Postings. That's good stuff. There's two bits on here that I'd like to thank staff for, the engineering staff on the Cobble Hill sewer collection expansion and the treatment and collection upgrades. Both of those are complete now. One of the best things about this was the expansion of the collection system, because that was one of the biggest problems we had in the village area, was the odors and noise that came from there. The things that have been done there, really first class. There is no odor, there is no vibration. And the recovery of grey water that now feeds the systems down in the park there have really worked well. So thank you very much to the engineering system department for carrying those out.
Director Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. Two questions. The first one is, I don't know that it's a project because don't really know what's going on with it, but our property across the way, would that not be something that would be reported on, or would we have to have some idea of what we're doing? And secondly, is there a possibility to use this same sort of software and format for the analysis of CVRD park holdings?
Through the chair to the director, yes. So this right now is identifies all of the active open files. If there are any closed session items, we have created another list that will be presented at that time. So right now there are closed session items that we're not as far along as we are with this one, but we will be bringing that to a closed session with the updates. And the second question was,
It's a great program. Can we park assets? Can we have an analysis of all our park assets too?
So the staff have, it's been just to make, like this work just to get to the capital plan, there's been a lot of information in various sources or various areas within the organization. Divisions have their own spreadsheets, and we have finance. There's a lot, we brought it all together. It's taken a lot of effort to get that. The goal certainly is exactly what you're saying. There's the further uses of this, the next objective is the work plans, and that's gonna probably take 3 or 4 months, and then following that, further information such as assets and other plans will be integrated into this system here. So yes, it is on that list.
Okay. No other hands. Thank you so much for the reports. Mr. Robbins, where do we go from here?
Where would you like to go?
Crazy.
I think we're at the end of your business. There's no one here in the gallery to partake in your question period, so we move to a motion to close, that the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with the Community Charter, Part 4, Division 3, Section 90, subsections as noted in accordance with each agenda item as listed in the agenda.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Just a reminder to close